In the dead of night, one of the world's most dangerous waterways appeared to move a step closer to open conflict. In the Arabian Sea, the USS Abraham Lincoln and its carrier strike group were already in position, operating under intense pressure as tensions around the Strait of Hormuz climbed hour by hour. And then came the claim that changed the atmosphere almost instantly. Iranian-linked media declared that missiles had struck an American warship near the southern mouth of the strait. History did not whisper in that moment. It roared through headlines, military channels, and competing statements from both sides. Iran-aligned voices suggested that as many as 2 missiles had been launched, with accusations that the American vessel had ignored warnings from armed, fast attack boats. Washington answered with a flat denial, insisting that the carrier had not been hit, that no missile had come close enough to matter, and that flight operations from the Lincoln continued without interruption. That is where this story becomes larger than a single launch, a single claim, or a single denial. Because in a crisis like this, the first battlefield is not always the sea or the sky. Sometimes it is perception. Sometimes it is fear. And sometimes it is the narrow space between what was fired, what was intercepted, and what each side needs the world to believe. Around 15,000 American personnel were reportedly tied to the first escort effort under what was described as Project Freedom, a mission presented as an attempt to secure commercial navigation through one of the most strategically important maritime choke points on Earth. Guided missile destroyers separated from the main formation to build flexible defensive layers, and combat air patrols remained active overhead. More than 100 aircraft, according to the broader deployment picture, supported a vast air and sea control network meant to keep the route open. On the other side, Iranian messaging pushed an entirely different narrative. Media outlets associated with or closely aligned to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps amplified reports that an American ship had been struck. Some claims escalated further, hinting that even the carrier itself may have been targeted. A former senior Revolutionary Guard commander delivered a threatening message about an American graveyard of carriers and troops in the strait, while an ultimatum reportedly gave Washington 30 days to end its naval blockade or face a transformed maritime battlefield. So the central question is no longer simply whether missiles were launched. The more important questions are these. How did this incident unfold so quickly? Why did the information war become almost as intense as the military standoff itself? Why is the Strait of Hormuz once again turning into a test of credibility, deterrence, and control? And if even a limited exchange is enough to shake global markets and military postures, what does that say about the fragility of American power projection in this region? Before we go deeper, if you follow military crisis analysis and geopolitical breakdowns like this, support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, turning on notifications, and leaving your view in the comments. Was this a failed strike, a propaganda operation, a warning shot, or the opening scene of something much bigger? The debate matters, because in moments like these, every interpretation can shape the next move. Let us reconstruct the sequence as carefully as possible. The timeline points to the 4th of May as the critical date when the USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike group were already present in the Arabian Sea. The regional environment was described as one of exceptional tension, with escort operations beginning under Project Freedom as commercial shipping faced disruption and uncertainty near the strait. At some point during this phase, conflicting reports emerged that missiles had been fired toward American naval units near the southern entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian media claimed direct impact. American Central Command responded that the report was false, that the carrier was not hit, and that the missiles did not even approach the target area in any meaningful sense. Yet the broader pattern of deployments and operational responses suggests that the possibility of an actual launch could not be dismissed outright, even if the tactical results remain unclear. On the deck of the Abraham Lincoln, strike aircraft were reportedly continuing sorties at a high tempo. Electronic warfare aircraft, especially the EA-18G Growler, may have been central to the immediate response. In a scenario like this, their role would be to detect hostile emissions, jam guidance systems, map the threat network, and help identify launch positions for follow-on suppression strikes. That matters because the military significance of this episode may not lie in visible damage. It may lie in the attempt. In a congested and heavily monitored battle space, even an unsuccessful or intercepted launch can force rapid recalculation. It can trigger escort adjustments, broaden rules of engagement, and produce emergency decision cycles inside the Pentagon, inside Allied capitals, and inside Tehran. Project Freedom itself was presented as more than a military movement. It was described as a strategic mission to restore freedom of navigation through a corridor carrying roughly a quarter of the world's seaborne oil, along with major flows of fuel and fertilizer. Any disruption there does not remain local for long. It ripples through insurance rates, tanker routing, futures markets, alliance consultations, and military risk assessments across several continents. American officials framed the mission as essential to regional security and the global economy. The force package reflected that seriousness. Guided missile destroyers, a large air component, unmanned systems across multiple domains, and thousands of personnel combined to create a broad security architecture. In plain terms, this was not a symbolic patrol. It was a show of organized maritime control under highly unstable conditions. And yet, the danger in the Strait of Hormuz never comes only from large platforms and visible formations. It comes from asymmetry, it comes from geography, it comes from ambiguity. Iran has spent years shaping a doctrine built not around matching the United States ship for ship, but around exploiting narrow waters, coastal launch zones, dispersed assets, fast attack craft, mines, drones, and layered missile pressure. That is why even a claim that later proves false can still be strategically useful if Tehran can convince domestic audiences that it struck back. It strengthens internal perceptions of resolve. If it can persuade foreign audiences that the United States is vulnerable or overextended, it may widen political hesitation in Europe and beyond. If it can generate just enough uncertainty to spook shipping and energy markets, it can create leverage without winning a conventional battle. This is where the information dimension becomes critical. Iranian-linked outlets moved quickly to spread the claim of impact, while international channels, by repeating the allegation or presenting it as unresolved, risked magnifying the psychological effect. In a crisis environment, speed often outruns verification. The story begins to shape reactions before the evidence can catch up. For Tehran, that can serve multiple purposes at once. Domestically, it projects control and retaliation. Regionally, it signals that American naval power entering the strait will not operate without challenge. Internationally, it plants the idea that Washington may be leading a risky campaign with uncertain outcomes. In the modern battle space, that perception can become almost as valuable as a successful strike. At the same time, Washington's response was equally deliberate. The denial was categorical. The message was not just that no ship had been hit, but that the carrier remained fully operational and aircraft were still launching in support of ongoing operations. That is the language of deterrence maintenance. It tells allies not to panic, markets not to overreact, and adversaries not to assume they have punctured the image of American control. Still, denials alone do not erase the military logic underneath the confrontation. If ballistic missiles or anti-ship systems were in fact launched, then the episode reveals something important about the current threshold of risk. It means forces in and around the strait are operating in an environment where the warning period is short, the room for miscalculation is narrow, and escalation ladders can appear almost instantly. The Strait of Hormuz is uniquely vulnerable to this kind of pressure. Its strategic value is immense, but its geography favors disruption. Traffic can be compressed, approaches can be monitored, coastal launch areas can threaten vessels moving through predictable lanes. In that kind of battle space, a weaker actor does not need to defeat a superior navy outright. It only needs to create enough danger, enough uncertainty, and enough economic shock to impose political cost. Iran's asymmetric toolkit is built for exactly that purpose. After the decline of much of its traditional naval capability, the Revolutionary Guard developed a doctrine emphasizing massed, fast attack craft, mobile missile launchers, mine warfare, coastal pressure, and dispersed maritime harassment. Some reports describe vessels being forced toward the Iranian coastline, where threat envelopes from shore become more effective. In such a setting, every escort mission becomes both a tactical operation and a strategic signal. Among the weapon systems often cited in discussions of this threat environment is the C-802 anti-ship cruise missile, a sea-skimming design associated with Chinese origin and a range of roughly 100 nautical miles. There are also persistent concerns about ballistic missiles adapted for maritime targeting, as well as layered coastal systems and salvos launched from multiple platforms. Whether or not all of these were active in this particular incident, the broader threat architecture is real enough to shape American planning. That planning depends heavily on detection, tracking, and disruption long before an incoming weapon reaches terminal phase. American destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system can track large numbers of aerial and surface targets at the same time, and when combined with aircraft such as the F-35, the result is a sensor network capable of finding emissions, identifying launch points, and passing targeting data in near real time. This network matters because an anti-ship engagement is not just about the final seconds of interception, it is about the entire kill chain. Detect the launcher, identify the radar, jam the guidance, pass the coordinates, strike the source. If the launch came from mobile coastal positions, fast attack boats, or dispersed batteries near the shoreline, then speed of processing becomes as important as missile range. Electronic warfare plays a crucial role here. The EA-18G Growler is designed to monitor hostile radar activity, interfere with targeting networks, and place pressure on any guidance architecture trying to support an anti-ship strike. In a dense and contested electronic environment, confusing or blinding the enemy for even a short window can be enough to save a ship, preserve the formation, and expose the launch source